Hello, this is the Aftermarket Report with Vegas and Jim. Today's date, January the 13th, 2019. And I want everybody that's on my personal channel to subscribe to I Love Stocks. And I'm going to turn this right over to Vegas.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We have quite the list today and to prepare you guys for this coming week. So, we're going to be talking about SAEX, ACST, AT, CPRX, FTK, PURA, OTC stock. We're going to talk briefly about UGAZ DGAZ, and then Jim's going to comment on some pot stocks. So the first one we're going to talk about is SAEX. And as you guys know, this is actually a low float stock. And this actually had quite the run, actually quite a few days in a row last week. And this is obviously a company in oil and gas. They're in Texas. They call themselves SAEX. They do land service, marine services, they do data processing. I mean, they do a lot of different things. But the bottom line is that they're a low float stock. And I'm going to turn it over to Jim really to talk about what's happening and what's going on with this chart, because for a long time this was very quiet and didn't do nothing. And there's a lot of people actually think bag holding this from a few months back when it was over $8. And hopefully there's hope for them, me included. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim and tell us what's going on here with SAEX.
Well, SAEX has been a good scalper for me. We sitting here and you could see the yearly high of 73.80, and it's just came on down and hit a 182 on the yearly chart. So I'm going to be pulling up, let me see here. I'll pull up the daily chart on it. And I think I've got the wrong one over here, so I'm going to move this chart over. There we go. SAEX. So we've had a real nice 3-day run on this. It started showing off back last week, and we ran up to about 260, and it pulled back, found the bottom here at $2. Kind of humped around a little bit, and the next day we had a good breakout. So we've been watching this stock real closely here for the last 3 days. And every time it pulls back to that trend line. And we had a little bounce back up to my resistance there at 469. Pulled back to that trend line. And then right before close, we had a breakout on this thing. And it ran all the way to $6.40. $6.40. I called a resistance at 571. And it ran all, and I was calling them on the way up when this breakout happened. So I was really surprised to see that 640, but I did have it on mark for 640, 649 would have been the next resistance. And now we've pulled back to the 563 area. This is SAEX. We had a golden cross when this broke out right here. You see that little golden cross right there where that 50-day average crosses over the 100 and the 200 SMA. And then every time I see it start to pull down that green one, that's when I want to probably go ahead and sell out of it. But right now we're still moving up. So I'm going to pull this up to a 1 day, 1 minute. And we started pulling down after hours, and so did the stock. The stock hit a little flat top right here, a little spot right here at 562 a couple times, run up to that 50, and then came back down. So I'm kind of looking at this thing to pull down some more. I've got a couple areas that I'm interested in. I know we're going to pull back. Pulled back to that resistance that I called at 571, and I have another one here at 550. If that don't hold, I've got a couple other support levels at it, and I'm going to draw one right here I just now seen. Just now noticed that right there at that 513 area. So let's see if this thing can hold at 550. I mean, this was a huge bounce. It bounced from, let me repeat it, it bounced from $4.20 all the way up to $6.20 right before close. That's a $2 bounce. So it's overextended right now. And if it pulls back, I think we're still going to have this stock in play. So keep SAEX on watch. And Vegas, the next one is one that you like, ACST.
Yeah, so ACST Pharma, it's actually located in Canada, in Quebec. And they've had a nice little move here on this chart. I do like it. They actually had some news as well on January 9 that they did get a certificate for a European patent that was issued by the European Patent Office, and this is valid until 2030. So that's good. The patent provides protection across all major markets in Europe. So this is interesting. But what I really like really about the chart is I just like that it keeps on moving up and it's in a beautiful channel here. And I believe that it's been up constantly, day after day after day since last week, since this news actually. And I really like the way that it's closing here on the Bollinger Bands. So it looks definitely, may look overbought, but I think there's going to be a potential continuation here for even, not so sure how it would look on a day trade, but I think I'd be comfortable personally swing trading this particular stock at this time. Jim, over to you on that chart.
Yeah, they were also was awarded board compensation of matter of the method to use patents by the European Patent Office. So that's kind of news that kind of made it pop up a little bit. So SAEX, I'm going to pull up the year's chart on it, and that's a yearly daily. And you could see another stock that got way oversold. Excuse me, that's not the right ticker. Put that in real fast. Now that I look at the yearly chart, we're kind of I'd say a pivot point, maybe a little resistance, first resistance right around here at 112, 118. But anytime a ticker breaks above $1, I get very interested in it. We have three white soldiers right here, 3 days in a row. So I'm expecting this to maybe go up to the next level at 120, 119 area, and maybe to 125. And if we can break past that, we can move on up to the 129, 130 area. And this can get up back up if this keeps going, which look, it's had a great 2-week run, all the way from down here to 66 cents, almost a 100% gain to 115. Now I also have places where I think it can pull back. It can pull back to one of my favorite numbers, which is right around 105, 106, which I would call a very good support, with a low one just right under $1. So maybe if this does pull back, it'll pop right back up. But the resistance levels after this, we'll see what happens Monday. We're at this 115. If we can get up to the 119 area, to the 125, we can bring it up to 130 and find a little resistance right there. So, you know, just keep an eye on the volume, on the price action, and we're bullish on it. So, you know, I like to play the pullbacks if it happens. They always dip and they always bounce right back up. And this is ACST, and Vegas and I are both bullish on it a little bit, or I am a little bit, and I see another level right here. It could pull back to that 110. That's just a 5-cent dip. So really, it's concentrate in this area between 98 cents and up here to around 118. 113, I mean. That 98 and 113. If we can keep in that channel, I think we're going to have a nice little scalp play and maybe a swing trade. Depends on the momentum of the stock. And the next one that Vegas would like to speak about would be AT.
Yeah, so I really like Atlantic Power Corporation. They're actually listed both on the Toronto Exchange under ATP and on the NYSE at the ticker being AT. Also, they are in the Russell 2000. They're an electrical utility company. They're located in Massachusetts, and they do serve the United States and also Canada. So no wonder they're listed on the Canadian Stock Exchange. So I do like, you know, the detail, this actual chart as well. I mean, it definitely looks overbought. This stock, you know, this chart reminds me of the one we just talked about. I mean, there's a lot of strength in the energy stocks. Maybe not all of them, but this one has good strength. And Jim, when Jim will talk about the chart, I mean, this keeps going higher and higher and higher. So definitely looks overbought. And definitely the Bollinger Bands are definitely walking, and I like it. So I think we could see also a continuation on this particular stock. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be on scanners, but I don't care about that. I'm looking for a stock that's going to actually continue to have movement. And this is one that would interest me as well for a continuation and also a swing trade idea.
And
Jim,
I always
you.
talk, I always talk about being in the now, knowing what's going on. It's part of the philosophy of trading, and a lot of people miss that, and they just try to take something that's just off the scanner. But there's a big part of being a good trader is being in the now, knowing what sectors are running, know if it's cold outside or hot outside, or the energy sector's running because of the major sell-off they've had in the last 8 years. And now we have an energy president in office, and so just part of being a good trader is being in the now, and I talk about that quite a bit, about it on a daily basis. And so I'm going to pull up this chart, and this is one that we talked about, her and I were talking about. It moves in 5-cent increments, and you can see by this yearly chart what I'm talking about. I'm going to go ahead and draw these trend lines as I go. And you can see when I draw a trend line, I just go straight across the page and I try to find a consolidation period. Well, it's done this all year long from $2.10, and it did sell off when I was calling the market and my crystal ball came out, and I was telling people to look at stocks that you like, look at ones that you played, be in the now. Know that December was a flunky month, one of the worst months for a sell-off that the country's ever seen. And that opened up my eyes to be telling people, look at stocks you've played before and see how much they've sold off. Being in the now. So this dropped to $1.85, and within days it bounced right back up to that 225 level, 224 within days. And so when I'm saying 5-cent increments, I'm saying 210, and I'm going to draw a little trend line right here, and I'm saying 215, and I'm saying 220, and I'm saying 225, and I'm saying 230. See how it moves up in 5-cent increments. Well, here in the last 2 weeks, it's ran from 207 and it's ran all the way to 243, and this is on a year chart. So we're looking at a double top on a year here at 245. It was a couple pennies off right there come Friday. So this thing can pull back to some of my support level, which is at 230. I think that would be a good place to get in at. Remember, this is an energy play. So let's pull it back to 230 maybe and see if we can just go ahead and continue and break out of that double top. So if it pulls back, I'm looking at 230. If it breaks out, we're going to pull up. What we're going to do now is I'm going to pull up a 3-year chart to look for a new resistance. See, it kind of tells me the same story. It's not a real high dollar stock. The 3-year high was at 275, and here we are at 243. So I'm not going to say it's going to fly up to 10 bucks or 5 bucks or $4. What I am saying that this would be a good scalper play if it pulls back. I'm not sure I'd want to swing it, but who knows, it gets a little bit of news, it can move on up. So we're looking at 255 for the next resistance, and the next resistance, see what I'm saying? It moves in 5-cent increments all the way up. Now we're looking at 265. There's a 10-cent bounce, and I can see the 250 right there. So the year's high was 275. Let's see if we can get it to pull back to 230 for an entry. And I'm going to look one more time at the year's chart because I want to see something here. I want to see where the moving averages are. This is an indication that maybe we're going to have another breakout. You see the 50 is under the 100 and the 200, and it's starting to create a golden cross. And this thing could take off back to that resistance level of 275 if it keeps on moving. And that is AT. And the next one we're going to talk about is CPRX.
Okay, so CPRX is Catalyst Pharmaceuticals. And, they're a biopharmaceutical company And, biotech companies are definitely going to be in play for 2019. Read so many articles. So you're going to hear us talk probably a lot about, pharmaceutical stocks throughout the year. But this company in particular, CPRX, is in Coral Gables, Florida. They develop therapeutics for neurological diseases, and they also include treatment of what they call LEMS, which is the Lambert-Eaton myasthenic syndrome. And they also treat epileptic spasms, which
Oh,
is very common in infantile and juveniles. And it was named after, they call it actually the West syndrome, which is a rare epileptic disorder in infants, children, and adults. And it was actually named
I
after
have
the
it.
English physician called William James West. So there you go.
I have juvenile metabolic epilepsy, and I've had it.
Yes.
I've had
So there,
epilepsy ever since I was probably about 10 years old. So this comes dear to my heart, and it's something that I've grew up with. And right now I'm having seizures every 3 minutes in my brain. So I don't take medication for it. I grew up smoking one hits most of my life, and it's kind of I think that's been my medication for the epileptic that I have had. So when she brought that up, that kind of went straight dear to my heart and almost brought a tear to my eye.
yeah. So what
So,
they're doing is the company is developing a CPP 115,
hmm
which is a treatment for infantile spasms. So I really hope that they'll get some sort of approval. So this company had some news the other day, about a week ago, and the news was that they had an article, basically a publication of the clinical data from the investigator-sponsored study, which evaluates the treatment of the Musk antibody positive myasthenia. So the article was positive. They said 15% of patients um, tested negative, but the patients, they did mention that 40 to 50% of the patients, mostly in the US, tested positive, which is a protein that's required for the neuromuscular junction. So it's a little bit of a high level document. Really, someone that's really in the sciences would really understand this a lot. But definitely, some looks like there's positive news on it, and maybe we'll hear more as the clinical trials advance. But this was just an article that they released, and regarding their how the clinical data. So as a result, I have noticed that the stock over the last, really, if you look at the start of the new year, this stock was a strong buy, in my opinion, under $2. I mean, this
oh
was
yeah,
back at $1.90 back on January 2nd. And I mean, look, we closed at like 264. So, I mean, that has had a really, really nice run. And I still, I kind of like that it has good support, that it crossed over the 50-day moving average. And, I don't really know yet where the stock's going. It looks bullish to me. Looks like it wants to continue. Um, but again, we need to see if the support's we need to see if it's gonna continue above the 50-day now, because this could also pull back. But it looks pretty strong at this point. But Jim, let us know what you think about this chart.
I just love this chart. Of all the charts we've saw today, this is probably one of my favorite ones.
Oh,
And the reason I say that because it has a lot of volatility, and with volatility, it's good for scalping and also swing trading. And like Vegas said, it ran from 185 low when I was telling everybody to look for stocks that you love, and it's ran up 70 some cents since then, here in a matter of 8, 9 days. So I see a pullback. I'm looking at the year's chart, and you can see we have a triple top up here right around, oh, I'd say probably around 389. And really, my resistance would be around 385. So somewhere in that area, and had a yearly high of 405. So I'm going to pull up to 20-day chart, and I really do like this chart a lot. I mean, a lot. I think this thing can pull back a little bit to this support channel that I have between 252 and 255. And maybe if it goes down just a lower, the lowest it would probably go would be right around 240. I see a support level right at 240. Now I'm going to pull up that year's chart again because, well, first I'll pull up a daily. And the daily doesn't tell me much here. We did have the breakout Friday from 252, which I mentioned earlier as a support level, up here to 268, and then it kind of pulled back and consolidated, but never did go back to that low and started to regain ground. So I'm going to pull up this year chart one more time, and I'm going to call out a couple of resistances. Now, what I'm seeing for a good solid resistance, we're at a pivot point on the year, would be right around this area of 281. So that would be a yearly pivot point, and I'm going to change that. Yeah, 281. I'm going to change that to a blue so I can have that and remember that come Monday. That's going to be the target that I want to hit. First we'll hit here right around this 271 area and kind of bounce between 271 and 276. And if we can get to 281, it'll pause. And then we can go ahead and probably bring it up to the next breakout of 292 to up here around a little under $3. But this is, like I said, every time it pulls back, it bounces right back up to that yearly high. Pulled back to the pivot point right there, 282. And I say pivot point because we have this other supports down here that it dropped down to. And then bounced all the way back up to that 405 again, to that $4 area. And then we've had this hard sell-off during unfiltered conditions in the last 3 months that were really unnecessary in the 2018. And now we're bouncing back up. So let's see if we can get up to 281. If we can get to 281, we're going to start hitting the 3 different resistance lines that I have here. 287, 291, and 298. And then we've got a lot more to go. We've got a lot more to go on this stock. So this is CPRX. Keep it on watch. You see the 50-day cross down here and we had that big sell-off. We're starting to turn around here. This thing's starting to turn around a little bit. And we've already had the big bounce on this stock a little bit from that 185 to 264 to, what was it, had a high of around 268. So keep CPRX on watch, and I will, personally. It's going to be on the top of my watch list come Monday morning. And this next one, Vegas, FTK, that you mentioned to me.
Yeah, so FTK I mentioned because, you know, your volume. So FTK is Flowtech Industries, and amazing volume. I mean, over 22 million shares on Friday. You know, they're into the chemistry and services of oil and gas across the US and internationally. They actually have 2 segments. They got an energy chemistry technology, and then they got a consumer and industrial chemistry technology. So, you know, they're very involved in the design and manufacture and packaging of the nanofluid brand name for use in oil and gas well drilling and cementing. So very interesting company, but the reason it soared, because we do see here on the chart, I mean, it had, if you know, the beautiful idea if it would have been swinged the day before. I mean, what a run it had. And the reason for the move was because Flowtech Industries has a deal to sell their Florida chemical to Archer Daniels Midland for $175 million cash. So this is actually good for the company FTK, because the sale expects to have a negligible cash tax effect, which will actually offset the company's outstanding operating losses. And the CEO, John Chisholm, he actually stated that, you know, he believes the benefits of this transaction are compelling on multiple fronts and actually in the best interest of stakeholders, and the fact that they're excited about having a relationship with Archer Daniels Midland to actually look at maybe additional opportunities to leverage their portfolio of products, maybe help better serve the oil and gas market. So it looks like they could have, let's say, some more strategic benefits for both companies involved. And, Archer Daniels, that company who they sold to, is not a small company. So, they're an interesting company as well. And I think there could be some potential benefits to the two synergies. ADM, which is the name of the company, Archer Daniels, they do all kinds of things, and they're actually listed also on the stock market. And they have a lot of things going on. So they have actually 31,000 employees. They're in 170 countries. So there's going to be, I think, some good synergies here with the two. And ADM is involved in many things. They're into fuel, which is why there's a connection with FTK. They're into farmer services. They're in financial services. They're into animal nutrition. They're into supplements. They're into food. I mean, I think this is going to maybe help open up some more doors for FTK. So FTK had a nice little move if you had the stock the day before. Nice move on Friday. However, I still think that there's a nice little chart here. So
Oh
I'm
my.
going to let Jim talk about that. I mean, I like that it's over the 50. Little resistance here at the 200 day. But Jim, I still think it looks decent. But I'll let you talk about what you see on this chart.
When I see a big bounce like this from 146 all the way up to 270, 289, I have some concerns that maybe it'll pull back and consolidate just a little bit. I also noticed that the Houston-based chemical company has new CFO, and there are a few other executives stepping down. So I think that's always sometimes a good thing for a company. They kind of rebrand themselves a little bit. So I'm looking now at the yearly chart, and here we were hovering down at just a year low. I mean, look at this, 677, had a solid resistance, and then it just completely slowed down most of the year, like almost every other stock did last year. We had 2018 was a year for market correction, and we got it. 2019 is going to be for a market rebound. But we had a low here of 95 cents, and it bounced up within 5 days to 146. And then what Vegas was talking about, and then Friday it bounced all the way up. And we had a big bounce. Huge. It ran all the way up to the 200 SMA from the 50 in a matter of overnight. So I've got a couple little support lines on this thing. I'm going to bring it down to the 1 day. First, I'll bring it to the 20 just to show you the big gap that it made and how it ran up and pulled back and then bounced up to midway to resistance level of 280 and then consolidated here at 274, which I thought was a pretty good support on that day. So I don't want it to go any lower than that 227. I hate to see that if it does, or if I see this 50-day start to cross down on a daily 1 minute, I'm going to go ahead and I'd say sell it and wait for the support level, which I'm seeing at 235 at a low. I don't want it to go below that 235, and I do see a solid support right in this area at 250 to 255. And I've noticed here I made a couple comments about it during pre-market hours when I started noticing this movement here, and then we had that breakout up here to resistance level of just under $3. Right around 299 is what I would say, 297. And we had the 50 SMA cross down on the daily 1 minute. And also, it was just showing strength because it kept hovering around those moving averages. And then we had a little squeeze here where it started breaking out and it bounced on up. So it consolidated here for a good hour at the 273 level. I'm going to have it on watch for Monday. I expect a little pullback for it. I don't want to see it go no lower than 255. If it goes below that, I'm going to go ahead and say sell and wait for another pullback to around 235 and then jump back in it. So this is FTK. Yeah, it's an energy sector, right, Vegas? Energy?
Yes.
Yep, being in the now. And
in the now.
In the now. So the next one I want to talk about is a stock that I got in that Vegas and I ran up, and we were very proud of this call. We called this thing out. It's called Pura.
Yeah,
PURA.
I just
Vegas, you
want to
want to?
mention,
Yeah,
I just
go.
want to mention about Pura that they did have news Friday that they did introduce a new CBD sports water bullet bottle, and they actually reached $1 million in sales milestone. So they did introduce this new sports water bullet bottle to ring in the new year, and this they have refreshed their logo. They have the logos refreshed. They got the patented cannabis extraction partner from Cali, which
Oh
is
my.
KALY,
Yes.
and they've improved with another partner called ALKM and their new state of the art bottling production line. So they actually have a new look for the bottle. And I think we'll definitely hear more information on this, which they did mention that next week to celebrate the $1 million milestone in sales and to introduce the all new cannabis water sports water. And very interesting. So, we'll see. I mean, this company launched, this launched back in 2017. Their sales have grown, they said 600% in the first year. And they got these flavors like kiwi, strawberry,
Oh
lemon,
man.
lime. So this is really interesting. So, Jim noticed the chart and decided that he was going to look to swing trade. And, people might think, especially if you're in the chat room, and, Jim said, he was looking to swing trade the stock from 0.8 to, 0.10, from 8 cents to 10 cents. And people might be thinking, 2 cents? That's so crazy. Like, who would swing trade something for 2 cents? Well, let Jim tell you his methodology here and how much money he can make on even 2 cents. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Jim, because people were like, who swings trades for 2 cents?
Yep.
Well, Jim's got to tell you something. So pay attention, especially to newbies. This is really good information.
I think people with small accounts that could invest less than $1,000 in a trade, and you see something down below 10 cents. I usually, when I look at, you got to know how much profit you want to take out of a stock. And so with an 8 cent ticker, and I'm showing the bottles right here. This is new sport bottles they got out, and I really believe in this movement right now, especially ever since Canada legalized marijuana, and that all these big companies are getting involved now. And she did mention Pura, along with Cali and ALKM, and also don't leave out NBEV because they're in the same kind of industry. NBEV. So those are four you'd want to keep in this one sector alone. And I'm going to pull up the yearly chart on this thing. And Vegas and I called this thing out at 5 cents. And it ran all the way up to 25 cents here. So, if anybody would have listened to me that day and bought 10,000 shares at 5 cents and run it up to 20 cents, 25 cents, and I was yelling people that analysts were calling 25, and so did I. I backed them up. But I said once it hit that 25, it's going to pull back. And they were right on target with it. And it pulled right back. And then we were able to flip this in and out, in and out, in and out for a couple of times. And then, so 20 cents times 10,000 shares, do the math. And you'll realize that a small $500 investment would have really done you very well. And so we were talking about Cali. Someone introduced me to Cali Friday, and I said, well, I'm going to go look at Pura, because it's like they're brothers and sisters. They're working together. And now that the ALKM's involved, I'll be putting it on my watch list also. So I got in at 8.1, and I'm not pumping this stock or nothing. It's just one that I like to play. And I let everybody know when I get in a trade and when I get out of a trade and how far I want to take it. Well, I'm pulling up the 20-day chart. It hit my support here at 8.1, which I had illustrated. And right now I'm up $30 just on 10,000 shares, up just 0.0. I'm up 40 actually. Well, I'm up 30 because I got it in at 8.1 and now it's at 8.4. But I want to see this go up to at least 9, where I might exit and I can get me $90 out of it. Or if I get lucky and it runs all back up to 10 cents, I'll get $200 out of it. So this a small trade for a small account. and people will probably buy more. You know, some people will buy 50,000 shares, and if I'd have bought 50,000, I was just doing this to show that people with small accounts can make money. I usually would probably bought 50,000 shares, and if I'd have done that, I would be up, oh, three times. I'd be up 150 bucks on it already. But you got to look at the block trades. You got to look at the time in sales. You got to see if that trade's going to accept them offers, you know. And I buy all or one, all in, all. I buy if they don't take all of them, then I'm not in the trade because I don't like to buy, you know, put an order in, say hopefully it'll fill. I want it to fill, and if it don't fill, I'm not in the trade. So I bought 10,000 shares at 8.1. I want to run it up to 9 first thing in the morning, and maybe I'll get right out of it at 9. It depends on how I feel when I wake up. But the news, I love the news on this company. I think this is another catalyst to bring it back up to that 9 to that 10-cent area, and that's Pura. So keep in mind, Pura, Cali, K-A-L-Y, and A-K-L-M, and throw in NBEV in there too, because we watched NBEV Friday and it had a nice little run. We called NBEV under 5. And Vegas, what else?
Okay. Well, I think you wanted to mention the UGAZ DGAZ,
Yep.
and those are just people are like, what's U and what's D? So U's up, D's down, but UGAZ DGAZ. I mean, those are for those of you that are new for trading too. I mean, you might think, what the hell are those? So basically, they're just ETFs for the natural gas sector, and UGAZ when it gets cold, that goes up, and then when DGAZ when it gets hot, then people trade that stock. So it just depends on what's happening out there with the weather, right, Jim?
Depends on how much
And
energy they use. It's a
that's
natural
right.
gas play, ETF.
Yeah. So Jim, well, I think you should mention like how you alerted DGAZ not to, or was it UGAZ the other day at like 20
36.
something dollars? How much
36.
was it?
36.
Okay, and look where it's at now.
Yeah. And this is what I mean. They play just the opposite of each other. And and these have run a lot different than they have in the past because I watch them every year. I watch them every year around winter time and especially in January. And they've just been, I mean, some idiot comes out with a weather report back in September and it says it's going to be the coldest winter ever, and which we haven't had yet. Don't ever believe in these weathermen. Just go with your own insight. And so I was saying this is way overdone. UGAZ, for example, and it still blows my mind how far this thing run. And I'm just going to post a 20-day chart or a 3-month. Well, let me see. I'm going to post a year's chart on this. This thing at one time, it's had splits. Oh, that's Pura. That ain't going to be the one I want to look at. This thing had an average at around 50 bucks, low support at $50. Okay? And this sucker ran all the way up on that false weather report, all the way up to 260, and just went crazy. And I got so scared of it, I didn't want to look at it anymore. And I told the room, I said, it's going to go back down here to this $86 level, 87, and it did. Look, in 5 days, it dropped from 147 all the way down to 71 dollars, and it's just nuts. And being in the now, knowing about what real weather is going to be like, and how things pull back. So we pulled back way below the support level in 2 days. I mean, it was at 63 cents and it ran all the way down 30 bucks in a matter of 3 days. And that was just oversold territory. And I was telling the room, I said, January's coming up. This might be time to get in this stock and run it back up to that $50 level. So then when Missouri got this big snowstorm, 14 inches of snow, which we haven't seen in a long time. And right in Missouri, I live in Springfield, and we didn't get but 1/8 of an inch. But St. Louis and Kansas City got a ton of snow. It just barely missed us. But yet, people are going to use a lot more natural gas, and UGAZ will run on that. And so right now I'm going to pull up the 20-day chart. just to show you. I didn't want to talk much about this stock. I just wanted to mention that I called this thing out at $36. Said get ready for January, and the thing ran up to 47 here. It ran on up $7 Friday. We hit that 200. So I'm thinking this thing's going to definitely go back up to 57 to 60 bucks. But I want to see it break past this 53 area. That's where I'm going to call a solid support, right around 52, 53. But it can pull back. I mean, I can't, my crystal ball can't read into the future much on this one because it's so volatile and it's a risky play. So you just got to know when you get that feeling. And I had that feeling when it hit 36, and we're at 47 now. So, you know, it's a $10, $11 bounce. Me, I would be out of it, and I'd just wait for the pullbacks. And that's UGAZ. It needs to consolidate. Maybe pull back to around 43 bucks, 44, and then it'll bounce on up and hopefully hit that area right around 48 to the $52 channel. And that's where it needs to be at an average. And same with DGAZ. I called DGAZ wrong. DGAZ was probably one of the worst trades I made all year. And I don't make too many of them, but I do make them. And when I seen this stock go down, I'm going to pull up the year's chart, because I'm really conservative when it comes to me getting into a stock. I just don't buy at the high. I wait for the pullbacks. This thing dropped from, it had a split. So it's already had a split, and it's reverse split. This thing was down at 5 bucks, $6 from 14. And I was telling the room it's time to buy this thing, and it dipped on down to around $3, and it just shocked me. And then it had a split to bring it back up to that $50 level. And then it ran all the way up to right around 127, $46 to 127, and it just then it hit that 50 SMA and couldn't break past it. So right now we're at 97. I think this is going to pull back a little bit. I'm going to look at the 20-day now. I've got a support level at 92. I think we can pull back to this area right around 80. And that's where I'm going to say right around 80 bucks. But these things are volatile, real volatile. And experienced traders should be the only ones that play these right now. But if you'd have took my call down there at 36, that would have been an easy scalp or an easy flip. And that's UGAZ and DGAZ. I don't play them much anymore because I just can't predict the way these things will run. But if I do see an oversold area, I'm in on it. Vegas, you got anything you want to close with?
Were you going to talk about some pot stocks or no?
Oh yeah, I was going to talk about CRON.
Okay, so let's talk about CRON, and then so I'm going to comment after that on TLRY.
Oh, and TLRY too, yeah.
Yeah, so let's definitely talk about CRON. Everyone knows Kronos Group. How can you not? And especially if you follow the pot sector. I will say there are people, by the way, that do not trade pot stocks just out of personal reasons. So I know actually a lot of traders that have messaged me and said, I like your comments that you guys talk about pot stocks, but personally I don't trade pot stocks. And I said, and that's okay. You don't have to trade anything, actually. So you trade what you're comfortable trading, you know? So, but I know some people are not, don't believe in marijuana in general. So that's actually why they're not trading it. And that's okay. Everyone's entitled to do, free country, do what you want. And whatever works for you. So yeah, just wanted to comment that a lot of traders love the action, but they're not trading it. So I thought that was actually interesting because I never actually thought of it that way. So I thought that was interesting to get some feedback from some people that are active traders that told me that. So that's interesting.
And I won't trade casino stocks either. So
right.
that's and I do believe personally, I do believe that this is not a Bitcoin crave. This is actually for real. I believe that it will cure and it will help a lot of people that are sick. I do believe it'll help our veterans that suffer chronic, what do you call that? disorder over there.
PTSD.
Exactly. And I do believe that it'll help the elderly. I do believe it'll help Alzheimer's. I do believe that it'll help epileptics that suffer from taking chemical drugs. And I do believe that the pharmaceuticals are at war with this era that we're going through right now. I also believe that the federal government is starting to put their thumbs up on it. And so, I, but I also believe there's a lot of idiots out there that'll take advantage of it. I do believe that it's a good way to fight the drug war that's going on. And I do believe that it's a way to bring income into the government for tax money. So there's a lot of good positive things about it. I think a person needs to have an open mind. And I made a tweet just the other day, Friday, on Stocktwits. CNBC started badgering this industry, and I just said, please, CNBC, just keep your mouth shut about this industry, because you don't have a clue of the benefits that it can heal and help people. But yes, there are idiots also out there that'll take advantage of it. And CRON, I called down here at $10.15 when we had the market crash back in December. You see this big sell-off we had consistently, December sell-off, and when it got down it got down all the way to 955 with a support level of 974, and I mentioned it then too, but also mentioned seeing the consolidated period at 1015. And if you'd have took that trade with me there, you'd been up $4. So this has been running a good trend line up here for the last 2 weeks. Always expect a little pullback, but this company's getting involved in that Marlboro company. They're going to turn Marlboro Man into Marijuana Man. And I read a little article about that Friday that I thought was kind of interesting. But there's just so many people getting involved in it. Pension plans are getting involved in it. California pension plan bought into TLRY, and I don't know if that was a good idea, especially when it was up there around $140. So you can see where it is now, and I think TLRY is going to have a few issues. It's probably going to pull back a little bit. So I just want to I want to open that up to everybody. At TLRY, I called, another perfect call. Vegas was a witness to that. I said it was going to go to 100 when it was down here at right around $70. I think it was even around 60 something. And I said, Hillary, I meant TLRY, Vegas.
But you call her Hillary.
Yeah, I call her Hillary. But I said it's going to go to 100 in 4 or 5 days. And she took me up on it. She believed me. And bam, we hit that $100 mark. And I was so tickled. And I played this when it was at 100. I used to be my support level. So I just had a little flashback that maybe it'd go right back to that old support and pull back. And it did. It pulled back to $95. And that's TLRY. Did you want to say anything about that stock, Miss Vegas?
Well, I did want to mention just about two things. So just to go back on CRON. So, CRON has a partnership with Ginkgo, which is GINKO, and Ginkgo Bioworks is the actual company. It's a biotech company, by the way, in Boston, founded by a phenomenal smart guy. He's a scientist. His name's Tom Knight. He is from the MIT University. I mean, his company specializes in using genetic engineering to produce bacteria with industrial applications. Now, the synergy here is interesting, okay? Because CRON, and Ginkgo have a heavy deal in the works. So it looks like in their recent presentation that they did back in September, Ginkgo Bioworks could enable Kronos to produce the cannabinoid ingredient that's essential for product development, which at a fraction of the cost at commercial scale and at a higher purity than what's currently available. So they obviously need to do, further confirmation that supply needs are where the money is. But you know what? That is really interesting partnership. So I think, this could be some more news and more synergies between the pharmaceutical sector and obviously the marijuana sector. So exactly what you were talking about, Jen.
Yep. I'm willing to stick my arm out on the limb here and say that this thing probably go to $20 easily. I'm not saying it's going to do it now, but I am looking into the future, and I do believe we're going to see a $20 on this stock.
Yeah.
The momentum's there. This news constantly gets great news, constantly, and so yeah. And then there's another one that we like. I want you to add to that pot sector, and that was, that's including Pura, Cali, and the small little beverage companies. But these are more into the medical part and into the supply part, and that would be CGC.
Yeah, I just want
CGC.
to mention. I just want to mention too.
Yeah.
I want to just finish my comment on TLRY
Yeah.
because I was just finishing on CRON.
Oh
But
yes.
on TLRY, um, you know, the stock surged as well. But part of the reason it surged is that Privateer Holdings, okay, who actually owns 75 million shares of TLRY, was those shares were in a lockup. Okay, so they weren't allowed to sell them until next week when the lockup expires. And they actually, one of the managing partners of the company, Michael Blue, released a statement saying that, market is speculating, their holdings of Tilray. And they actually said that we do not have plans to register, sell, or distribute the 75 million shares that we own, even when the lockup expires next week. So as a result of that statement, that put some confidence in the investors. And then the stock had a little bit of a run that day as well when that statement and press release came out. So that was interesting.
Did
with
you know that
TLRY.
it sounds here like NBEV and TLRY announced research partnership focused on non-alcohol THC and CBD beverages too.
Yes.
And that's NBEV. So NBEV and TLRY are getting involved together. So, and one thing I've learned about industries, it's kind of like the auto industry. You're going to have a bunch of them come out, but they're going to thin out. And some of them are going to partner up and become stronger and stronger. And we've had NBEV on our watch list for 6 months, and we're still bullish on it. We've been bullish on TLRY from $24 to 300 and something. We're bullish on CRON. We're bullish on CGC. So yeah, I'm real hot on this sector, and I just wanted to mention these at the end of the broadcast here. And Vegas, you got anything else you want to mention? It's
Stock wise?
Yep.
No. I think we're good. I think we have quite the big list
Oh yes, we do. We
for the
really.
week.
Yep.
Well, actually, even just for tomorrow. I mean, because we're gonna, look to hope market update tomorrow. And we'll see what happens tomorrow in the market.
I'm going to pull up this NBEV chart. Vegas and I called this thing down here at $4.70 in the room, and look at it. The last 3 days, we've had a pretty good little channel here. We went a little bit below that channel at 627, but then look, that's almost a $2 bounce right there in a matter of less than 3 weeks. And I do like NBEV. This is one you can play the pullbacks on. If you see a high of the day and it starts to consolidate, wait for the pullback to the next maybe support level and play it. It does it every day, every time. You can see the pattern. So let's see if we could break past this 640 on there and get back into these new highs that we had here at the beginning of this 20-day period. And again, that big sell-off was just a great indicator that it was oversold right there at the end of the last few days of December when we had that big crash. And I'm just telling everybody, check stocks that you love, that you've played, that you admire, because they're going to bounce back up. And they did. Almost every one of them that I've mentioned or even looked at, you just look at the charts and go from December and see what happened to any stocks that you crave, that you've played. And you still have room to be playing the volatility as they start to consolidate at the old resistance or maybe at a support level. And take that advice, because I really do mean that. And this is the aftermarket report. Be sure to subscribe and ring that bell so you can get our market updates. And today's date, this Jim in Vegas and Jim, today's date's January the 13th, 2019, and we love stocks. Vegas, you love stocks, don't you?
I sure do.
All right. Have a good day.
Have a good day, everyone.